George P. Bush is Texas Land Commissioner and also now running for Attorney General of Texas. But incumbent Ken Paxton is standing in his way, and national and state press are calling it the Holy War of Texas. So we're going to watch all of this unfold. This is an election of elections, and George P. Bush joins us now. It's good to be with you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to get your thoughts. What do you make of that Holy War of Texas title? Because you're going into probably one of the most, going to be one of the most watched elections, one of the most watched races in Texas.
Well, it's important for our state. I think it's important for our country when you look at this assault on our state's values and conservative ideas and conservative free market principles, not only in states like Texas, but throughout the South and freedom-loving areas of our country. And so, rightfully so, this is going to be a closely watched race. In the meantime, we're hitting the ground running, talking about border security, backing the thin blue line, human trafficking in Texas, and restoring accountability to this important office. So we're excited to engage the media, inform the public about the challenging issues that confront our state, and obviously the failures of our leadership in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, of course. And, obviously with the Texas changing, got a lot of Californians moving in, and I don't think every election is going the way that everybody thinks it's going to go. I want to immediately just get all of the, I want to get this out of the way, not to have the interview go as me pitting you up against Ken Paxton, but there's certain things that are said that I think a lot of voters that are watching you that may be unfamiliar with you or unfamiliar with your record or background, they may be kind of wondering for themselves. Because whenever anybody goes for Texas Land Commissioner, the first thought that pops into my mind is, where else is this person going to go? Because once you become Texas Land Commissioner, there's kind of a ladder that you climb, and you can't come out of Texas and run for the presidency unless you've been land commissioner. And that's one of the things that Paxton had said about you. He said that he also doubted your sincerity of support for former President Trump. He said that he's got a mentality that he's going to be president someday, going into that. And then he said that he's just going after, talking about you, that you're just going after Paxton's seat because you didn't want to go after Abbott's or go after LG because of fundraising issues. Just to get all of that out of the way. I mean, that kind of seems kind of like low-hanging fruit for obviously your opponent. But what do you say to stuff like that for people who point that out?
Well, I'm focused on the here and the now. I've been privileged to serve my country and our nation's military for 10 years, and I've been privileged to serve as land commissioner for 8. And when I look at the statewide offices, I see a crisis of moral leadership, a lack of moral compass in this important key law enforcement position. And it's required to have the lead prosecutor of the state be above reproach. And I don't want to delve into the details in terms of his criminal indictment and the FBI investigation and the allegations entrusted by Christian attorneys that have since left the office. My focus is on this office, 4,200 employees that are needing a leader, somebody that can step in, roll up their sleeves, and fight for conservative values in the courthouse. And that's what the race is. And so he's punching down. I'll let him do that, but I'm just going to focus on the issues.
And talking with George P. Bush, who is currently Texas Land Commissioner, now running for Attorney General of the Republic of Texas, a lot of people have been really paying attention to the powers of Attorney General. And I think before, everyone kind of knew what the Office of Attorney General did, but they really saw it in action with these lockdowns, that this wasn't just nationwide, this was state by state. I wanted to get your thoughts on how far lockdowns went in Texas specifically, and if anything like this should occur again, what do you think that the approach from the AG's office should be towards something like this?
Well, I think that we need to encourage more free market principles, not listen to people like Dr. Fauci as much, and rely upon our local instincts in our communities and listen to our business leaders. I talk to small business owners, restaurants, bar owners. I was proud to start my campaign actually in a Texas bar, one of the first to reopen after the pandemic. And we've got to return back to the idea that in our country, we can allow individuals to make their decisions, to allow them to manage risk and to emerge from the shadows as they see fit. We, can always do better. And next time around, I assure the people of Texas that we are going to do that better because lo and behold, Texas has the lowest amount of cases. We're high on vaccinations. And when you entrust people's communities, small businesses, good things happen. That's what our country used to be about. Unfortunately, we've run away and listened more to bureaucrats and folks in D.C.
Yeah, and I think it also, those sorts of orders, don't you think that they kind of overlook the self-preservation of the individual as well? People don't want to get sick and they don't want to expose themselves to any kind of risk like that or get anyone else sick. And I just thought that was missing from this whole equation this entire time. Your thought?
Yeah, it was an undue punishment on small businesses. And I can tell you as a father, and I know you are a parent as well, that digital education did not work in Texas. So I was proud that we reopened our schools quicker. And next time around, I think even the blue states will reopen quicker. But we saw, well-protected teachers unions in California educate illegals in South California before they educated legal citizens. And so I think there's going to be a total change in education, a total change in the way that we run our economies. And this has been a true lesson in terms of entrusting the individual. I think you're absolutely right. And we forget that, whether it's looking at our Constitution and the brilliance of the founders, or just our general philosophy of entrusting the free markets.
Yeah, exactly. And with trusting the individual as well. So Governor Greg Abbott has made Texas what a sanctuary state for the Second Amendment. In Missouri, they had the new Second Amendment Preservation Act, which is arguing the supremacy clause of the Constitution regarding law enforcement within the state. And this gets into, not to get in the weeds with our audience, but like the Prince v. U.S., where you can't have the federal government forcing states to basically enact and run federal programs. Along these lines, because now the federal government is intimating that they're going to go after the state of Missouri for what they've done. If something like this were to happen, whether it's with the sanctuary state for Second Amendment or whether it's with the border wall that Abbott says he's now going to start constructing his own at the southern border, because the AG's office is going to be right in the middle of all of this, how do you respond to something like that if that comes from the Biden administration and they want to say, wait a minute, hold up, we want Texas to act actually not in the best interest of Texans?
Well, we'll fight for the Second Amendment every day and all day. This is a proud tradition in our state, and this is an example of federal overreach. I was proud that the Alamo hosted the governor along with legislators to sign 7 bills that expanded Second Amendment rights. We joined 20 other states that allow for constitutional carry in Texas. So what better place than the cradle of Texas liberty to sign those bills? But there's a lot more that we can do as well in working with law enforcement and use this as an opportunity to be a force multiplier for law enforcement in the state of Texas. And proud to be a supporter of Second Amendment, and we'll fight for that. As it relates to the border wall, the governor is stepping forward in terms of finishing the Trump wall. We need to not only finish that, but restore the Remain in Mexico policy. Unfortunately, with Biden and Kamala Harris, I guess we're coming up on 100 days since she's agreed to actually come down to the border. I don't know if we'll ever see it. But in the meantime, Texas will emerge. I was proud as land commissioner to pledge 250,000 acres that are at or near our southern border to help complete this wall. We still have over about 250 miles that were appropriated by Congress, and I'm looking at bringing a lawsuit against the Biden administration to force deadbeat bureaucrats to get off the sideline and use those dollars that were appropriated to finish the wall. This is an absolute national security crisis with over 200,000 apprehensions this past month alone, with only 18,000 Border Patrol agents keeping the watch every single day. So as a member of our nation's military, I view this as our bigger threat that we need to confront.
Yes, and you served in the Navy as well. That's what you're talking about. You'd served in the Navy for 10 years, and we appreciate your service on that. You bring up the immigration and obviously the fight with the Biden administration. And this was a few years ago. Jim Brewer was governor of Arizona. It was wild to me that you had Texas and Arizona and these border states that were simply and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I didn't read that they were trying to extend their authority beyond what their state constitution allowed in terms of enforcement for illegal entry or apprehension. But the Obama-Biden administration then filed suit and was preventing these states from effectively implementing and following their own state constitution. Do you anticipate anything like that happening with however Texas is handling the border, particularly, you mentioned that wall down there, and Abbott pledging to continue building it or do his own wall. Are you expecting something like a challenge like that from the Biden-Harris administration, or maybe are they not that malicious or litigious? I don't know. I think that maybe remains to be seen.
Well, I think Texas law, we're on very solid ground because the governor in his press conference last week talked about using trespassing law as the local manner by which we can interdict the illegal immigration and the flood that we're seeing on the southern border. And so he's clearing out and providing for prison space so that we can hold the detainees. But as I mentioned to you, at 200,000 per month with projections escalating during summer months, which is what we typically see on the southern border, we're going to need a lot of space to keep up with that flow. What I'm more worried about, Dana, is the negligence of the federal government. The fact that they are not building enough facilities. They're not processing folks. They're not COVID testing when they come through Customs Border Patrol. They're not giving court appearances. They are giving you a notice of appear, and you can build a legal narrative for being a resident in our country if you abuse the wide loophole that we have under our asylum laws here in our country. So until we close that, that's what I'm more concerned about. And just this week, there's an announcement that any migrant family that shows up the border that is one of the asylum eligible countries will not get a court appearance, and they will be welcomed into our country. So again, in the wake of the Capitol insurrection, we can build walls and barbed wires to defend the Capitol, but we're not doing anything on our southern border. There's something wrong here, and we've lost order, and it's nothing but chaos. And I encourage anybody to come down to the border, visit with our Customs Border Patrol, spend some time with them to learn about this crisis that we're seeing, and it's profiting the bloody drug cartels on the southern border while we do this, all because of the false promises of Biden and Harris.
Yeah, those, and who we still have yet to see at the border, the borders are. Talking to George P. Bush, Texas Land Commissioner. I thought national politics were nasty, and then I moved to Texas 8.5 years ago. And boy, oh boy, our Texas politics are nastier than like a Southern woman's gossip session. I've never seen anything like it. So I got to ask you, you also mentioned the Alamo. You mentioned legislators signing stuff at the Alamo. What is the latest with this? Because there was a huge fight. There were people who were calling your credentials on the carpet as a conservative, as a Republican, saying that, oh, this is George P. Bush is trying to redesign the whole Alamo. He is besmirching Texas history. And again, somebody who was born in Missouri and got to Texas as soon as I could, I realized the significance of the Alamo. And I'm watching all of this play out in the press. So what is the truth on this? Where does this stand as you're leaving this office of Land Commissioner and seeking higher office with AG? Where do you stand on this issue? Where are we at with the Alamo right now?
So this is the most important conservation project in, I believe, in our entire country, because this relates to the Shrine of Texas Liberty. And when I came in office in 2014, it was literally falling apart before our very eyes. So in partnership with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, I've now raised over $200 million with the county and with the city to make sure that we bring this back to the original battlefield of 1836. The 1836 plan is to bring the millions of visitors that come on an annual basis to this important, heroic location to this original glory. And what we've seen, unfortunately, is woke culture make its way to the state of Texas. There was a recent book that alleges that the battle and the Texas Revolution revolved around slavery, and that Davy Crockett and Sam Houston weren't heroes. And I'm here to tell you that they are. And as a military veteran who has brought my boys on Veterans Day to the Alamo several times, I think about their heroism. I think about the Texas revolutionaries who gave the last ultimate measure for the idea of freedom away from tyranny. And there's no better place to teach that story to future generations than what we're doing at the Alamo. So I welcome you, Dana. Anytime you're in San Antonio, give you a VIP tour. We'll have the Phil Collins exhibit ready to go next summer on the backside of the grounds. But the church, the Long Barrack, will be around for hundreds more of years, thanks to the work of the legislature and our office.
There's something humbling about the humble setting of the battlefield, and the souls that are still, the bodies that are still there. I think that there was an archaeological excavation because there was some bone fragments that were found near the cenotaph not long ago. But it's an amazing experience when you see American history take place at something that looks so humble and yet is so unbelievably powerful and reverent. And I was glad to see that people were standing up against woke culture, because some were saying, oh, they want to show both sides. It's the Alamo. Come on, there's one side, and there's one side at the Alamo. George P. Bush, we'd love to speak with you again, especially as this race heats up, going for Texas Attorney General, currently Texas Land Commissioner. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Have a good one.